I got a chart here, guttural consonants and resh. I'd like to review what those are, how they behave. There's 4 Hebrew letters called gutturals, and there's some difference of opinion in terms of, perhaps there should be some others that are included in there that are not generally. They are called gutturals because they are pronounced in the back of the throat, and those are the letters. So what's known as the silent letters, Ayin and Aleph, were not originally silent. It's like a glottal stop, almost like you fell from a height on your back, that weird sound. It's kind of hard to demonstrate. And of course, we don't know originally, no one was there thousands of years ago to actually record in Ayin, but I have heard some Israeli instructors give some demonstrations on the Ayin, and it was helpful. At the same time, very difficult to teach to others, very difficult to try to duplicate. But it is important that we know what the gutturals are. Sometimes resh is considered a guttural. Why is resh considered a guttural? I've heard 2 pronunciations of resh. Neither are wrong. It just depends on what word it is found in, and also depends on how you're raised, honestly, what part of the Jewish world you come from. There's resh, pronounced in the back of the throat, resh, and then pronounced more from the upper part of the top of the mouth, like a trill in Spanish, like resh, where you roll your R, resh. Both of those are acceptable, by the way, and I know I had a talk with someone yesterday on this subject, and I think it's important we give grace to one another, and so oftentimes someone will take one Hebrew class, and however they were taught it, if they hear someone else saying it slightly different, they're like, you're wrong, you're pronouncing it wrong. Not necessarily. Just like in English, whether you grew up in California, Washington State, Maine, the Deep South, we say words very different. So in Maine, for instance, you get someone in down east Maine, they would say, going fishing with my brother. Yeah, fishing with my brother. So if you were to try to spell brother out, right, that would probably look quite different than how it's supposed to be spelled. And fishing, you drop the G. So is that wrong? I would posit it is not wrong. It is just different. And so just that we give one another grace. So the resh can be pronounced in different ways. So this chart is from Gary Pratico, and I'd like to kind of review the chart, but also look at it critically and just ask the question, is he right? Is he right? Is he correct in the things that he says? And I don't want to assume just because this Hebrew grammar is out there or someone puts out a chart that it has to be correct just because someone with a PhD put this together, and sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're wrong just because of a graphic design error or a word processing error, or sometimes they're wrong because they missed something or they were misinformed or there's another side to the story. So I think it's important we think critically as language students. We're going to just swallow everything that everybody tells us. It's a rather important skill to develop. Guttural preferences. Gutturals and resh cannot take a dagesh forte. So I'm going to flip the page. So most of us, except for the brand new students, we know what a dagesh is. So I am zeroing in on a dagesh that is in the belly of the mem. So that little dot that is in some consonants, that is a dagesh. And there's 2 types of dagesh. There's dagesh lene, light dagesh, otherwise known in the Hebrew tongue as dagesh kal, light, and then there's dagesh chazak, or in Latin dagesh forte, strong dagesh. When it's a strong dagesh, it indicates that the letter is actually doubled. So that word would actually be shurek, mem, and then when you get to the mem with the dagesh, you have 2 more mems. So there's actually 3 mems in a row. Shurek, mem, cholam vav, lamed, dalet, tav, chaf sofit. So he makes the statement here in his chart, gutturals and resh cannot take a dagesh forte. So I would agree with that, but I would go one step further. I don't believe they can even take a dagesh lene, so a light dagesh, by virtue of the fact that they're gutturals. And the only letters that can take a light dagesh are the begad kafat letters. I know I've done numerous lessons on begad kafat. You're not going to find a dagesh, is the point I'm making. So we could actually say gutturals and reish, number one, cannot take a dagesh. Cannot take a dagesh, and that can be said with certainty. I have a chart here. This is I just threw up some verses from Genesis 12, passage that we've covered. So just take a look at it. Take a look at the letters that I have put in red boxes. These are all gutturals. Is there a dagesh in any of these? Do you see a dagesh? Two gutturals side by side. No dagesh, right? No dageshim. Dagesh means to pierce. So if you took a sharp object with a point on it and you poked through a piece of paper, what you'd see is a little hole in the paper, the size of a dagesh. And so that's why they chose the name dagesh, because it looks like somebody pierced. So as we can see, none of these. And by the way, chaf is not on the guttural list in most Hebrew grammars, but if you looked it up, chaf is actually considered a partial guttural because it is pronounced from the back of the throat, not as strong as a het would be. So I grew up pronouncing, or I was taught Hebrew pronouncing the chaf and the het exactly the same. That's where we're at a disadvantage if you're not raised with speaking the language. There is a difference that we would maybe not realize unless somebody taught us. So pretty uniform though. There's no dageshim. You don't see any dageshim. So I think that first point correct, but we want to add to it gutturals and reish cannot take a dagesh instead of just saying a dagesh forte, because there are more types of dagesh than just dagesh forte. Is dagesh lene. All right, number two, gutturals cannot take a vocal shva, but might take a reduced chatef vowel. So there's a difference here. The gutturals cannot take vocal shva, so it's a shva that's pronounced. While reish, it can take a vocal shva, so that's a distinct difference. It could also take reish, can take a reduced vowels. Reduced vowels are always vocal, never silent. So let's just review just these verses I've thrown up just to examine the gutturals and as it relates specifically to shva. Let's see if we can find any that have a shva underneath it. Okay, there we go. So the second rule or the second observation said that a reish can take a vocal shva. Now in this case, the shva is not vocal. So this is the word me'artzacha, from your land, me'artzacha. And so the rule for shva states one of them, if it's preceded by a short vowel, patak's on the short vowel list, then the shva is going to be silent. But the fact is that it does take a shva, it just doesn't take a vocal shva. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so you get a half vowel there. That's pronounced, the name of the vowel is chatef patach. So it's a reduced patach. It's had some of the life force taken out of it. And that's what that thing that looks like a shva, but it's not, indicates. It indicates it's kind of like a half patach in terms of its pronunciation. It's very difficult for us to differentiate in terms of how we speak the language, though, because the ah sound, how do you do half of an ah sound or 50% of an ah sound? That's challenging. But it does, the second statement does give reference to this construction by saying reduced vowels. The consonant reish can take a vocal shva. Reduced vowels are always vocal, never silent. So obviously, in this case, we're not dealing with a reish. This is an aleph, but the rule did state that gutturals can take a reduced vowel. So this is an example of a guttural taking a reduced vowel. So we can affirm practico is correct because we just have seen an instance where this is the case. Okay, any more? Okay, there's one there, reduced vowel, chatef patach. Another one that affirms his rule. Another one that affirms his rule. Okay, got a guttural here that's taking there's a shva there. Okay, so gutturals cannot take a vocal shva. So here's a case where it takes a shva, but it's not vocal. Veye. and it's obscured. The sigil behind it is obscured. Otherwise, it'd be more easy to point out regarding the laws of Shva and that why this has to be silent. All right, I'm out of time. One last one. The third statement he makes is gutturals prefer A-class vowels. Gutturals prefer A-class vowels. It's very important for you to have a vowels chart, and I've given this out many times. It's in the tool vault. I've put it on Signal. It's like all over the place. So just reach out to us if you need a copy of this chart. This is the best chart that I've found. It has all 17 vowel variations. Many people teach that Hebrew just has 7 vowels. It's actually 17 different vowel variations, and this breaks them into class. So you see that A-class vowel. A-class vowel is kametz hay, kametz, patach, and you have chatef patach. And so what Practico just said in his third statement is that gutturals prefer A-class vowels. Now, he doesn't say gutturals only use A-class vowels, but they prefer. And I just found by reviewing this that, you know, that's an O-class vowel, O-class vowel, A-class vowel, A-class vowel. Next line. A-class vowel. A-class, actually that's a half vowel. A-class, the shva is a non-vowel. That's in, I think, what is sigil? That's an E-class vowel. Back to the chart. Okay, yes, sigil is in the E-class vowels. And going down here, just to tie up here, so okay, half vowel, A-class, shva is a non-vowel, A-class, O-class. So we see there's quite a bit of O-class is my point. So in saying gutturals prefer A-class vowels, now I realize I'm taking a snippet of Hebrew text, just 3 verses, but, you know, is it true that gutturals prefer A-class vowels when we have, you know, the instance here amongst 3 verses that I'd say 40% of the ones we've examined are not A-class vowels? That statement may be a little bit strong, or that may be based on a greater understanding of the total usage of A-class vowels in Tanakh with guttural letters. And so it could be, I'm going to, you know, not come to a definitive conclusion, but just to observe that it's not like only once in a great while gutturals prefer, or that you'll see with gutturals other vowel classes, but actually quite a bit it uses other vowel classes. So it may use A-class vowels the most, but certainly not exclusively. And I guess the jury's out in terms of percentages. That would be quite a study. Probably someone's done a study like that in terms of percentages.